Hello and welcome to In the Weeds. We're recording live from the Pickeyweedz Esoteric Occult Boutique, located just south of Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, in beautiful South Abington Township. Pickeyweedz is the largest and most diverse boutique of its kind in northeast Pennsylvania, with an increasingly wide variety of items for many traditions.
In addition to items for sale, Pickeyweedz hosts a wide variety of classes, events, and community-driven gatherings throughout the year. Pickeyweedz is located at 105 Layton Road, South Abington Township, PA. Open Wednesday through Sunday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. More information can be found at www.pickeyweedz.com. That's Pickeyweedz.com, or on our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. In the Weeds is the official podcast for Pickeyweedz, where we strive to bring the community together with topics of interest, guest speakers, and informative discussions to benefit the entire community.
If you'd like to be a guest speaker, either live or remote call-in, please visit www.pickeyweedz.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, find In the Weeds podcast guest application, click it, copy and paste the text into an email with your contact information, and send it to us at pickeyweedz@gmail.com.
Now let's get in the weeds.
Good morning, everybody. We are here today for episode 14 with Kailin of Earth. You just opened a new studio, didn't you?
I did. Thank you so much for having me here. I am absolutely excited.
It's a thrill to have you here, girl. She does a lot of sound baths here. She's done several, and they're always incredible. She is always amazing. She puts everybody in the building out. The dog even falls out.
Yeah, Bella's in Zen. They're like,
she used to be terrified of noise, like drums and stuff like that, like think it was gunfire or fireworks or something like that. But Kailin comes in, and Bella falls over with her legs in the air, kind of like I do for Led Zeppelin. Yeah, that's how
TMI.
So tell me a little bit about your background, Kailin. So how did you get started on the path of yoga?
Yeah. Well, again, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and thanks so much for welcoming me for my sound baths and all of my shenanigans.
We love shenanigans.
She said shenanigans.
Yes, it's fun. Yeah. I honestly got it started on the path of yoga really through my own healing path, which I feel like is most of us, right? When we get into these types of practices. I'm 31 now. And I would say around probably like 21 or 22, I started developing this like chronic pain in my back, which now I really think was a combination of an accident I was in as a teenager, as well as just trauma and energetic imbalances and things, and just stress. But I was going all of the traditional routes, trying to figure out how to be relieved from some of this pain, because I was like, I'm 22 years old. Like, I shouldn't feel like this. Yeah. So, I was living in New Jersey at the time. I'm from Northeast PA, but I had moved out there when I turned 18 or so. And I, started, asking around to, other people around, what other things can I do to help with this? Because I don't want to take medications. I don't want to get injections, and I just need some type of relief, and someone had mentioned, my massage therapist at the time actually had mentioned yoga. And I was like, I've heard of yoga. This was like kind of before, I feel like in this part of the world, it had really like boomed. There was waves of it, right?
Yeah.
But it was kind of just making its resurgence back, and I was like, all right, I'm going to try it. So I attended an Ashtanga yoga studio, which I find out now is like one of the most hardcore forms of yoga.
Why not start at the end?
Yeah, why not start? But I was like, okay, it has yoga in it. Let me try. And I fell in love. The first time I went, I actually had to get a private one-on-one with the instructor because my back was so jacked at the time I couldn't even like do the full practice.
Yeah.
But she worked with me, and this is a huge, I feel like, influence as me as a teacher is why I'm so big in modifications and helping everyone get the practice that fits their body. Because
I love that you do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do, quote unquote normal yoga when I first started. And with her working with me and really helping me understand, how to modify things to where I was, that's how I actually started to get progress and growth to a point of where I could practice, in a way that was like everyone else in the room, So yeah, I really got into it from my own healing journey. And then as I started to fall in love with the practice, I started to learn more about the philosophy and the history of the practice. It's a 5,000-year-old practice, and that's when I really was like, wow, this is something more than just an exercise or a stretching.
It's actually written down.
Absolutely.
By the people themselves who practiced it, unlike so many others who were written by the
so
victors.
Rare. Yes.
So it's this true lineage.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. And, so I was just a practitioner for, a couple of years and I ended up, I was working at the time, at a senior services organization. I had worked my way up to management, which was great, but I was one of those people that kind of worked themselves so hard that that was survival, I was trying to work my way up the ladder to try to have a future for myself. And when I realized, the fact that I was just so stressed, and so overworked, that was a major part of the reason why I felt so unwell. This thing just kind of clicked one day, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
That's what happened to me.
It just done. And I was like, I have a retirement plan. I have all this stuff. I'm making this money, but I can't.
But are you happy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you're dying.
Exactly.
It's killing you.
Literally. Yeah. I was like, this is not okay. I feel like I was able to, push through it, for many years. But I think as you spiritually begin to open up and expand, it's like the universe is like, you can't do this anymore. It makes your back hurt worse, or the foods that don't mix with you start to aggravate you more. I think it's a vibration thing.
It is.
And the alignment. I started to realize that I wasn't aligned with what I was doing. So I ended up quitting my job. I feel like we all have this story,
Yeah,
right?
we do. All three of us.
Quitting
actually.
Quitting our job. And I moved back home to Northeast PA. And I just so happened to be like, you know what? I want to go on a yoga retreat. I want to kind of reset before I figure out what I'm going to do here. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I needed to come back to the mountains. That's what I knew that I needed to do.
Yeah.
And that's when I Googled, yoga retreat, and I found the Himalayan Institute. In Honesdale, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go for the weekend. Me and my partner at the time, his name was Daniel, went for the weekend, and I realized it was an ashram, which I didn't even know what an ashram was at the time, which is a yoga school, quote unquote, where people live. And I was like, I want to study here.
I want to live here.
I want to live here.
I don't like you people out here anymore. I'm going in here.
I want to try something new. So I ended up moving there, and I lived there for 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was able to get a free yoga education, and not just an education, but an immersive experience where I was living amongst people that all practiced, which was completely different. Completely different. And they're a very beautiful tradition. And so I was able to really get my roots, from a tradition, a lineage. And I myself, I don't necessarily identify with any tradition or lineage. I'm kind of one of those, everything that resonates with me, I kind of pick it up too. And, that's my spiritual kind of views. But to learn the roots of a practice from an unbroken lineage.
And how beautiful.
Was so powerful. Yeah. And that's definitely, I say that's the roots of my teaching now, are truly straight out of India.
Yeah. I think they're beautiful.
I didn't even know we had an ashram.
I didn't even. That close by, too. That's incredible.
It's wild. And I lived up, we've lived here for how long? It's nestled in Honesdale. Yeah.
Well, it's not like they're out there trying to convert people in the streets, going, hey, come to the ashram.
Yeah, it's been there, I think, from the 70s, and it was a much more traditional, ashram when it first started, but it's grown with the times, right?
That's
so
amazing.
Now it's also a retreat center. They have teachers from all over the world that hold retreats there, and people can come for residential programs like me, where you stay a year, 2 years, you work in the community, or SAVA programs where you come for just a a couple months and you like learn and study there. So it was just that's when I first got the taste of like, oh my gosh, like there are people like me, like there are people, you know, and not just people that practice yoga, but I feel like that with you too as well, like people that see the world in a little bit of a different way, you know, because growing up in Northeast PA,
it was not like that. Wasn't like that in Michigan.
North Carolina either. It was like, oh my God.
No. And, you know, I was raised, you know, my dad is pagan. My dad has been a
that's cool.
Yeah. So I don't even know if I ever told you guys that.
No.
Yeah. You know, so it's, you know, my mom's side, I grew up going to like, you know, church and stuff or Sunday school, not really church, but Sunday school and stuff. But my dad was very much more earth, you know,
so
sun,
you're well-rounded,
moon.
girl.
I am.
That's the way we raised our kid. She's 35 now, and we literally made her take part in everything.
Yeah.
Make your own choice.
Absolutely.
Forge your own path.
Yeah.
That's something to be really proud of.
Yeah. And I feel like
yours.
Being able to see the world through the eyes of different cultures, through people that have different beliefs, that's so important, because if we get narrow-minded or we can only see inside our own bubble, you know, that's when people get confused, or that's when like hate or judgment and things come around, because it's just
makes you aggressively protective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really think a lot of the issues in the world today are just people are scared.
Yeah.
They're scared of the unknown. They've really grown up in a certain, you know, bubble, so to say, and because they don't understand, you know, how other people feel or what they believe, it's immediately you know, we're all living in fight or flight mode.
Yes.
So, you know, and I was saying this the other day, you know, we're making all these big decisions and politics and laws and everything, but we're people operating from the sympathetic nervous system where you can't actually make decisions rationally. So my goal, or I feel like my mission here is like, how do we get ourselves back into a state of physiological, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual equilibrium, so that we actually can be present and see the world for what it is instead of what we're afraid of, you know?
And you just reminded me of a question I thought of to ask you last night. So I'm just going to throw this out. So I've been reading a lot about, you know, the Kali Yuga. And I've been thinking a lot about how we're creating this consciousness that's giving life to this. I'm reading Egregores by Mark Stavish. So it's giving life to this egregore that is terrifying all of us and making us act irrationally and behave very, very, very base. Do you believe that we create the world as a people with our consciousness together?
Big question.
And what can we do about
Tay
it?
with a curveball.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a yoga thing.
No, it is. It's these are the big questions, right? These are the big questions that I feel like as seekers we're all asking ourselves. We're all trying to make, you know, sense of the world that we're in. And I do think that the collective consciousness, I think we're all connected as one. I think that, you know, how we see ourselves and how we see our world is this ever-changing, evolving kind of, I don't want to say algorithm, because I don't want to say algorithm, but kind of in a way.
It works like that.
In a way, because when you think about it, you know, the reason that our world is what it is because we gave things meaning. Yeah. Right? I think it's Terrence McKenna has like a quote that's like, you know, if we didn't put meaning to words, we would just be monkeys making sounds with our mouth. Yeah. And it's true, right? So we've created this collective world through symbolism, through meaning of what we have determined to be true.
And what has value.
Yeah. Exactly. And, you know, over time, you know, that changes. And I think that, you know, where we're at now, it's definitely cyclical. I think everything in this universe is cyclical. And thank goodness, right? Because that means it changes.
Doesn't last forever.
She saw me to the prairie.
Yeah. So I do think that we have, you know, created where we're at, but I think it all is divine and purposeful. And I think, you know, with you think of cycles, or you also think of like a pendulum swinging back and forth, you know, things have to go all the way in one way.
She's our people.
We just talked
We
about
just talked
that.
about
Really?
this and Triggered.
Yeah, so an
Yeah.
upcoming
Yeah.
episode of Triggered, we talked about
Yeah.
the pendulum concept.
Yeah.
looking
It's
at
up to
things going
you.
too far. one way or the
Exactly,
other.
and that's what I feel like Kali Yuga is. You know, is like we've swung all the way into like almost as far as we can go into the darkness, right?
Yes.
And with that, it's scary,
Yeah.
you know, because it's unknown. We're also, can you feel that free fall?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like right before things swing back the other way, right to the light, right? Because Kali Yuga is the cycle. So we move into the next one is like the light age or whatever, you know, like, so we're kind of in this free fall moment, which is so powerful. And I feel like that's why all of our souls right now chose to be here, is because we are in this creative time.
Yeah.
And what we're doing here, like right now,
Yeah.
is part of that.
And if we survive, and
Exactly.
we shall,
Yeah.
we will absolutely change the paradigm.
Absolutely.
We will.
We
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
It's inevitable, you know, and that's why you're seeing this resurgence, I feel like, of spiritual people and the witches, and you know, everybody's out here and they're tapping into their spiritual roots
Yes.
because it's part of a cycle. And I do think, you know, but those dark times is what calls us all out of our
Yes.
caves.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always been kind of a rebel anyway, so I'm always kind of
Kinda.
out there.
Yeah.
Come
Kinda.
adversarial. What can I say? It's just,
There are men still running in North Carolina that haven't looked back. I know I say this all the time, but it's true.
I love it. Well, I feel like, yeah.
get
it's like-
yourself right.
Don't start now.
I'll do it for you. I've got a wrench right here.
Exactly. And it's us that, you know, live on the fringe, right? Or on like the outskirts of society. I never fit in. I tried to fit in
Yeah.
so hard and it just did
Square
not.
peg.
It did not work.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Yeah.
that's where so much of my suffering as a
Yes,
young
ma'am.
girl came from. You know, I'm straightening out my curls. I'm not wearing my glasses. I can't see shit.
I love your curls. Oh
I
my
do
God.
too, but as a, you know, where I grew up, you know,
Oh, the girls had the straight,
they
perfect,
did.
polished hair, and it was shiny.
Yeah, and my dad,
Bitches.
my dad is half African American, and my skin is whitewashed.
I know. Look at me.
You know?
My dad is native.
Yeah.
Looks like he stepped off the res. I
Yeah.
got robbed.
got the
Yeah,
nose.
right?
I got the nose and the ass.
Exactly, and it's crazy.
And the
Like
temper.
even right.
Yeah. She sees it. She
We
just
all
went,
have
yes,
that.
she does. I see it in her.
The sweetest of us, I feel like, are the ones that have that. Like,
Yeah.
don't
Oh, yeah.
get on our.
We
wrong
try
side.
really hard.
Yeah.
Please don't push our buttons.
Yeah,
Yes, we don't want you to
exactly.
push our buttons.
Precisely.
So you
Oh my
started
God.
a Wild Women of NEPA festival. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, in this summer, myself and a woman named Melissa Roberts, she owns a ski shack in Music. You know, she came to me and was like, "Hey, like, you know, I want to throw a women's festival," and I was like, "Say no more. Like, absolutely, I would love to help with that." You know, so we were like, what is this going to look like? So, you know, we sat down and kind of put our values together of what we thought that would be and what that would look like for us. I created a website and like literally we talked about it in April. I think I like finished the website in May and we put it out there and it just kind of like took a life of its own. You know, I think women were really ready and looking for, you know, a sense of community, especially out in nature, you know, that they could connect and learn and be with each other. And, you know, we had the idea of making it a workshop based festival, you know, so there was, you know, dozens of practitioners there offering their craft, right. And
Yeah.
their medicine, which I was super excited about. So it became, you know, a networking opportunity for them. You know, we thought maybe we get 100 women, maybe 200 women.
You got way more.
Yeah,
than that.
just under 1,000
That's
women showed up.
That's incredible.
In Lazy Brook Park in Tunkhannock in August, and it was phenomenal. You know,
Yeah.
it was a day of just like connection and nature, and you know. It brought so many people together, and I'm so grateful to have, you know, been a part of like the creation of that,
Yeah.
you know, and I know that Wild Women, you know, is going to continue on and evolve, you know, in so many ways. Since opening my studio, I'm realizing that I kind of have to redistribute my energy.
Yes.
In
There's only
ways.
so much, right?
And- yeah. So
This
I'm
is
not,
the life of the business owner, kid. I'm telling you, it's
There is
happening.
no life.
Yeah, there's no life.
I've been been like
Hang it up.
I've been a traveling show for so long, working at all these different studios, doing all these things, and now that I actually have my own space, which is in Clark Summit, not far from here, I've had
Winola Road.
Winola Road, yeah. I have just in the past few weeks, I was talking to Melissa and just having to say, like, I'm always going to be a wild woman, but I'm going to have to pass the torch soon, to some other women ready to step up in leadership to continue on this venture, only because I only have so much energy. And I'm realizing, Melissa and I always kind of joked, because as practitioners, the marketing and business aspect of things, many times it's like you have one or the other. It's like you're either a practitioner or like you're super good like marketing business person. And like I've been lucky because I started in business that I have a little bit of both. But I said to her, I was like, I'm realizing like, I'm good at the business part of it, but at my soul and core, I'm a practitioner.
Yes, ma'am.
And because I'm doing, 3 Reiki appointments a day, teaching 2 classes, doing sound baths and all this stuff, it's my energy. You know what I mean?
Drains the batteries.
It does. Yeah. It does. So I'm having to, I feel like I'm hitting another like health crisis in a way.
Yeah.
So I'm having to kind of like scale back and really kind of, having to reprioritize it just exactly like where I put my energy until I can kind of find where that capacity and stuff is.
I think that's really smart too.
Yeah.
That you can see that because so many people just keep continuing because they feel driven to do it or they're obligated to do it.
I'll lose business if I don't.
Yeah.
You have to prioritize you or you'll lose business altogether.
100%.
You'll
And
end up in the hospital.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I, and it's funny because like, that's exactly how I felt just in the beginning of this podcast that I was talking about, at 22 or whatever, where I was trying to do everything. And I feel like everything's cyclical, everything's coming together, and here I am, at that same point again. And I had to really think about all of that too, because it's like it's so hard when you help create something or when you're part of something special. It's exactly
to let it go,
right?
Yeah.
And I had to really sit with myself and be like, you know what, like I can love and support this and watch this grow without having to be attached to it, or profit from it or whatever it may be. And I realized, when we step to the side, it opens up opportunities for other people.
It does.
As well,
it does.
So I'm so excited to see, where Melissa and all the other women who I know are just ready and waiting to like blow this off into something even more exciting.
There's something coming up this fall too, isn't
there?
There
is. Yeah. So the winter wellness expo. So I'm gonna be helping out with that one. Is on December 10th. It's in Kingston. So this is like a festival that's inside.
Oh yeah.
So it's gonna be
toasty.
Yes, toasty.
That time of year,
you have to be, So it's in Kingston. Tickets are on sale now. It's going to be great. I'm really excited to be there again with everyone, and really, it's yoga, dance, workshops, all women-owned businesses, which is so powerful.
Yeah.
And just another day of like celebrating womanhood and being able to, again, take time for yourself so that you can, rejuvenate, restore, relax, and in the company of other like-minded women, because, we know that is something that isn't so easy to find, in a judgment-free zone,
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And as a business owner, have you figured out that it's really hard to prioritize your time alone? You know, and so have you found that people get mad at you when you set those boundaries? Like, no, I really need this downtime for Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find the balance. I'm like, literally like, how can I do this while I'm also sleeping? Like, right. Sleep honestly has been the hardest
Kailin
part.
AI.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh, that would be horrifying. I think actually, I don't even want to know what my unconscious mind would create. But it's a balance, And I'm also wanting to, continue my education and my.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah,
I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm always like, how can I add more things to this well of practices that I have, But even as well, just kind of like, growing and enhancing like the practices and the skills that I have. You know, I'm a 500-hour yoga meditation instructor. You know, I'm a Reiki master practitioner and a certified sound therapist. So I'm learning more and more how to blend all those things together, right? And then, you know, I read the tarot. So, you know, but I'm interested in getting, you know, possibly other forms of energy work. I'm also really thinking of like Qigong and Tai Chi.
I love that.
I'm all about the energy body and stuff. And, like I said, I'm really all about making sure that things are accessible to everyone.
I miss that. And we're getting back in shape, so you might be seeing us.
I love it. Yeah.
So it's like crazy. We feel so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, we're up first thing in the morning. Not that we want to be, but we can't help it.
I'm not a morning person.
It's way too much energy in here. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, not everyone can get up and down on a mat.
No.
They just can't, you know, and there's chair yoga, you know, but even that, you know, where Tai Chi and Qigong, you're moving that energy, which is what we really need to do. It's the movement of the energy, which is really the powerful practice in all of these physical modalities, you know. There's the stretch, sure, and the strength, but why you're breathing and why you're in that shape is actually to move the prana or the chi in the body. So that's one thing that I've been like really kind of dancing around in my head on, and just how can I use this new space, Kailin of Earth Studio, 11701 Ola Road, Clark Summit.
Plug away.
How can I use this space to really reach as many people, as many different people as possible? You know, my studio is, I say, like a safe haven for beginners because I truly ensure that every class is accessible to everyone. I feel like my ability to multitask and like be super scattered in times is a blessing because when I teach a class, I can have, you know, a 65-year-old and a 25-year-old in the same class, and I'm teaching, and their practices, you know, or the postures that they do might be a little bit different, but it's still the same practice. And you know, the one investment that I made the most of in my studio was props. You know, making sure that we have all the blocks, making sure we have all the bolsters and the cushions and things, because when you're doing yoga asana, the postures, you know, asana, which is the Sanskrit word for the actual postures in yoga, it translates to a stable and comfortable posture. That's what it actually. And so if you're in a posture and you're shaking and you can't breathe, you're not stable and you're not comfortable. So you might need a block. You might need a knee pad, for goodness sakes. You know what I mean? So that you can be like, like when I like help someone get into a posture and then I hear that sigh, I'm like, that's what I want to hear.
You go.
Because you're breathing, you're moving the energy in the body. So yeah, I'm firm like advocate of, you know, you have to, you know, shape the posture to your body, not your body to the posture.
That's brilliant. Love that.
Yeah.
Love
There's
that.
so many places, and I know you probably experienced this going in, that they expect you to already have it.
Yeah,
and everybody's
already know.
doing the same posture regardless of your disabilities or anything. The fact that that's one of your big features is that you tailor it to the person.
I love
Absolutely.
that. Yoga for everyone.
It's a
Exactly.
I love that.
Everybody. That's what I say,
Yeah.
right?
I love that.
And that's what I've heard so many times from people, you know, when I'm saying like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher, you should try yoga. They're like, oh no, like I tried it once and I'll never go back.
Oh yeah.
Because the
they're
attitude
put off.
and the experiences.
Exactly. Or they, you know, weren't taken care of, or it was too hard, you know, or you know, people have been like, I went to a beginner's class and I couldn't even do that, you know, so it's really, you know, I feel like it's part of my mission to really try to make sure that people have a really authentic and welcoming and accessible introduction to yoga, because it truly is a practice that everyone can do, you know.
And there's internal practice too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not just the physical aspect of it.
It's okay. Jump in. I don't care. But I was just, you know, recalling what you had said about where you trained and that they had taken time with you.
Yes.
So this is almost like you paying it forward.
Exactly.
Like, I remember what it felt like to be, you know, body didn't work that way at the time, and it hurt, and it's intimidating enough to walk in to a studio, much less an ashram.
Yeah.
And they took time with you and helped you
Yeah.
get through it. So now you understand that and are bringing it. That's something
Absolutely.
completely different.
I think we lucked out with that in martial arts too, because you hear a lot of horror stories. But I don't think either one of us had that problem with those people.
Oh, my teacher wasn't accommodating at all.
No, he's not accommodating, but he was accepting of you.
Here, hold this
Yeah,
hold
he's
this 2-liter bottle of
yeah.
Coca-Cola between your knees. I'll see you in an hour. I'm like, what the?
His Wing Chun teacher.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
If you drop it, it's 100 push-ups.
Please see
Serious.
Well, and that's like the discipline portion
Yeah,
of
I love
things,
it.
right?
Discipline.
And that's, and
My
that's
favorite word.
yeah, right. And that's like part of, a true rounded education in yoga. Like, because yoga actually isn't like the postures. Like, that's asana. Like, yoga,
Yeah.
there's 8 limbs of yoga. Like, a lot of people don't
Yes.
really realize. And,
Let's talk about that.
So,
Yes, please.
yeah.
Yes.
So, like, yoga asana is just one of them. You know what I mean? Yoga is like a whole lifestyle. So there's meditation, that's a limb of yoga. There's breath work, pranayama, that's a limb of yoga. There's like the yamas and niyamas, which you can almost think of like, I don't want to say the 10 commandments, but they're like things
Yeah.
to live by. You know what I mean? There's concentrated focus of like clearing the mind and focusing on one thing. There's like deprivation of the senses, which is like, so it's kind of works sequentially, and then there's like complete absorption into like just yourself. And all of these practices of yoga asana, the physical postures, is actually like in traditional yoga, like the purpose for it is to get you prepared for meditation.
Yeah.
Because the physical body is the barrier.
Yeah. It gets in your way.
It gets
does.
in your way.
Because you feel that little pinch. You feel that little
Yeah.
twitch. You start to itch. Your hip gets really solid and painful because you're on those sit bones and you're like, oh.
Exactly.
Your body is literally assaulting
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
while
Yeah.
you're trying to,
It's like it's fighting an infection or something.
And
It's-
I still struggle with that. People would not believe that I still have chronic pain. I'm in pain
Yes.
all the time, and I'm young and I'm vibrant, but I am. There were days that I had to wear like a back brace all the time. I've been a million different diagnoses. You know what I mean? Like myofascial pain syndrome, fibromyalgia. Like having bulging
Ehlers-Danlos.
discs.
Yeah.
All these things.
Yeah.
But what I've learned in my path through all of my hardships, right, is like the core truth of it all for me is that your suffering leads you to your purpose.
Yes.
So everything that I go through, the fact that it does hurt to sit, it does hurt to do things, like I know with the person in front of me, I can empathize with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it helps me to be a better teacher, a better practitioner when I can empathize and understand what people are going through. So like as hard as it is to have like pain, grief, loss, all of those things, I realize that it's like the wounded healer concept, right?
Yeah.
It's like through our wounds, we are, developing what the medicine is that we can share, for the world. And, in 2020, my partner, Daniel, that I had mentioned, he was 31. He passed away of cancer very suddenly. And that was definitely like a huge expansion into my path. And I was with him as he passed. And I was listening to the one podcast y'all had just put out, where you were sharing, that, grief and loss and cancer,
Getting our asses kicked.
And it really does. And to be that close to death, and honestly, like losing the one person that like means the most to you. And then before that, when I was 20, my best friend in the world passed away very suddenly in her sleep. So I have this pattern of kind of losing the things that are, the people that are most important to me, which has been hard. But it's also helped me really understand like that concept of like what true love is. And like when they talk about non-attachment or just let it go, I used to hate when people like, just let it go. I'd
like
be like,
that's easy
shut
for you to
up.
say.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I get it now. It's not that you just have to like quote unquote let things go. It's like seeing them for what they are and understanding also that nothing is ever actually gone. And that we're all on this cycle of life and death and rebirth and energy. We're all connected. That's when my connection to, people beyond the veil, really, I was like, okay, like there's nothing to be afraid of. Like
Not
he's
at all.
still here. I don't get it, but he is, you know. And I have found that, especially with my Reiki practice, I end up getting so many widows. unknowingly, and they don't know I lost someone. I don't know that they lost someone, you know, and it's all energy and vibration. And like the less that I like marketed myself and tried to like, you know, when I first started getting into things, you know, I was really trying to go doing research, like how many posts every day do you need to make and like blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, it felt like I was going against the grain. And once I started just being like authentic and sharing myself and my story and all this stuff, that's when all the people that I feel like really needed the practices that I had like flowed in.
Yeah, because you're finding your tribe. And you can't relate to people unless you know that they've had trauma. And then you relate to the trauma.
Yep.
And that brings you into the person.
We like our broken toys.
Yeah, we do. We
We're
do.
all
We
broken
do.
toys.
We do.
is.
It's bizarre how that works, but they're drawn to you like flies.
Yeah.
And that's an energy principle, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that whatever you put out there and whatever you're vibrating is what you're going to attract. I have to remind myself of that on the daily, especially when the negative Nancy hits. I'm like, stop that. It's coming to, oh, shit. It just came through the door.
Right.
So I have to do that constantly, and I'll point at him, and he'll go, what are you pointing at?
And it's remembering that we're still humans, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like
Yeah.
that's another thing that, you know, as a teacher or practitioner or whatever you want to say, you know, that I really kind of had to grow into and understand is that like I'm not perfect and I'm never going to be perfect, and I'm always on this journey, and there's like most days when I can't even take my own advice and my own medicine. You know what I mean?
Every day.
And you don't, you know, and I used to be like, you know, guilty or feel shame about like if I wasn't, you know, if I was having a hard time, like I'm supposed to be helping other people, how can I still need help? And I'm like, no, that's exactly, you know, we're on the path together. We're all on this journey together. And the more that we remember that, and that's, you know, how you don't get like a guru complex or whatever, is like remembering like, no, I'm in the thick of it. We're just here. I've just read a lot and I've done a lot, and I feel like I just want to share what's helped me.
That's your medicine right there.
Yeah.
So when you're down on yourself, I think you do what I do. Instead of going within, you go without and try to find somebody to fix. Let me fix somebody so I can feel better about myself.
Let me help. Actually, that's exactly it. It's like,
Don't mind the knife between my teeth. I'm right here with you.
it is on the days that I'm having like the hardest day or whatever, you know, and it's like you go and you teach a class or you sit with somebody and like you're reminded of, okay, this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
You have that perspective, though.
Yeah. Because
you're
not alone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It gives you that. Oh God, it's not just me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's part like of why like when we all first met, it was like instant like, okay, these are our people, you know.
And I carded her.
I'm like, there is
yoga
no
freaking
way.
works. All you got to do is look at her. It works, people.
Like, are you old enough to even drive?
I'm becoming a yoga pusher.
I
I carded her when she told me she was 31. I was like, no, you fucking aren't 31.
That is one of the best commercials for yoga, right?
Right there. Just look at her. Just go on her website and look at her.
Yeah. This is what yoga can do for you. Mind and body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you just heard her. She talks about her pain, but still, she looks like that.
I think I'll probably be carded for many more years, I think. Yeah.
But I saw your daddy, and he's pretty.
Yeah.
And you look like your daddy.
I do. My dad looks young as well.
Oh, he's pretty. Yeah. Have you ever seen her dad? I have to show you a picture. Well, show him a picture. Yeah. He's pretty.
Well, you may be young, but it's an old soul. For sure.
It is. It certainly is.
And speaking of my dad, I'll show you. But my dad is a huge influence for me. My dad has been through a lot himself. So my dad's a double amputee in a wheelchair. He lost both of his legs when he was 17 years old. In a drunk driving car accident.
Wow.
So him and his 15-year-old brother were in a car with their friends doing what we all did, driving around. Their friend was driving. Their friend was drunk. And it happened in Montrose, actually, and crashed into a tree at like 70. My dad was in the front seat. He got pinned, and the engine caught fire.
Oh my God.
So 17 years old, you know, and his brother was 15. It was a pickup truck, and they had a bunch of kids in the back, you know, like we all did.
Oh, we all did it.
And he was flown up into a tree, and he died.
Oh.
The other kids were all okay. My dad and his brother were the only ones that really had serious injuries. So my dad had to get, cut out by the jaws of life, and he was in Shriners, burn hospital for years. And this was in '86. So, like skin grafts and everything was all very new at that time. So he was getting all these experimental treatments. He should not have lived. Like my dad should not have lived, but he did.
Yeah.
He did, and he moved back to the area. We went to Elk Lake School District, and he went back to school, and ended up, finishing out and things like that. And he ended up becoming a 911 dispatcher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and him and my mom had dated,
awesome.
like, prior to the accident, like, when they were, like, 14, and then they had broken up. And then after the accident, I guess my mom had heard about it and, like, reached out to him. And they fell madly, like, back in love.
Aww.
And then they were like, let's have a baby. And here I am.
He had a mission. You were the mission.
And, my parents, have since split, but they're still, friends and everything.
That's good.
Which I'm grateful for. If things aren't working, don't push it. If it's, but my dad is such a light and like so fun and so young-hearted, and has went through this horrible trauma. And my grandmother just passed in this past July, but she was part of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So my dad and her would go around and share their story and like try to influence people to not drink and get behind the wheel, because even when you're a kid and you just think, you're invincible and you're with your friends, like tragedy can happen,
It doesn't care.
And you can take somebody else's kid.
Exactly.
Somebody else's mother, father.
Exactly.
Sister.
And that loss, is something that, is a wound that stays with us forever. So I think through being raised by a man that, went through severe trauma, hardships, but is still such a light and so fun. And he knows he's handsome too. His head, by saying that, his head just grew like 3 sizes, I'm sure.
That was the way my daddy was too. He was a character.
Yeah, he is.
Terrible flirt. Oh my
exactly. God. But so I feel like that's just, it's part of my lineage, my path. We all have these things that we're going through, but, being raised by a man, with physical disability, that didn't let it get in his way. He was, walking on his hands in the snow with us, making snowmen.
That's
and,
awesome.
like he was jacked my whole life too, from like wheeling and stuff. He's since like his rotator cuffs have just kind of like degraded from just wheeling for so long.
Yeah.
But he's still like, he's coming over for we're having like our first Thanksgiving at our apartment, my fiance Ryan and I, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's making the turkey because I don't know how, I don't eat meat, so I'm like, Dad, you're making the turkey, and having everybody come together. But yeah, I'm just, it's we all have these stories, right? And it's like you would never know. And that's one thing when I was staying with my partner Daniel. His name was Daniel Copes. Amazing. Another could do a whole podcast about his spirit and what he taught me. But when I was staying with him in the hospital, because it was 2 months from when he was diagnosed to when he passed, it was like very quick. It was an aggressive cancer, adrenal cortical carcinoma. It's like 1 in 2 million people. But I remember like I had to go to CVS to like get something for him or whatever. And I'm like walking through the store and people, passing by, and I'm like, these people have no clue like what I'm going through right now, and as I would pass people in the hospital, just walking down the hallways, I'm like, everyone here is either sick or seeing someone who's sick. And then they go out on the street and you have no clue what they're dealing with. No. And that gave me such a perspective of others and myself of we have to be kind. We have to be, understanding, accepting, empathetic, because you really don't know what another person is going through when you pass them on the street.
You really don't. And we say this in traffic because we have both having a tendency to get in road rage. You never know what that person's going through or why they're acting as erratically as they're acting. And you never know when they're right there on the edge of going postal. Mm-hmm. And you're asking for it. Mm-hmm. So I have to really reel myself in.
Well, it's like the grocery store, the old folks that take 3 hours to look at all the ingredients in the cooler. And I'm like, You're going to be that age one day.
Yeah.
Real soon.
Let them look.
Just, you don't have anywhere else to be today.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
take a breath.
And we have to have that compassion
Yeah.
for ourselves because we're
Yeah.
never. I am not saintly by
No.
any means. Like
God,
my
definitely
I'm the
not
farthest
saying-
thing from
No,
that.
and sure, I have values and morals, but am I able to upstand them every time? Absolutely not.
Not.
And
We're
that's
human.
where that compassion and patience for ourselves come in because we're gonna have days where we flip out on somebody in the grocery store.
Yeah.
You know, or we, don't show
Yeah.
our best side. And that's part of the practice too, is how can I be as loving and compassionate to myself
Yeah.
in my moments,
That's hard.
Yoga teacher loses her shit.
Yeah.
It could be the headline.
Thai student in pretzel.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of which, what's your most memorable moment teaching?
Oh my goodness. Most memorable moment teaching. I've had a lot of people like fall asleep like in sound baths, snoring. Yeah, so that's definitely like how I know my medicine is working.
I did that.
When people
I just about fell out of the chair in the front when she was having a sound bath.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when people falling asleep. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. It's really. You know what? I teach at Endless Mountain Hot Yoga in Tunkhannock. I still teach there 2 days a week because that's kind of like
Nice.
my fam where I started. And I told the owner Peggy, she was like, "You can't leave here." And I was like, "Okay, I'll still teach there."
We
2
feel the
days a
same
week.
way about your sound healing.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And the power went out. The power went out while I was teaching there, and it was like mid-yin class, and we were so zenned out. I was like, you know what? We're gonna keep going, and I like just put like my phone, like the flashlight on and shone it on the mirror, and we went through the rest of the class like in the dark. And to this day, some of my students are like, that was my favorite class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you're teaching and things happen, it's funny because right now, so Endless Mountain Hot Yoga is in the Shadowbrook. And the Shadowbrook was just sold, so they're transforming that into like a 50+ community. But they're keeping the golf course, and they're keeping the yoga studio, but they're doing all this construction right now. So the past 3 weeks, we've been teaching with construction going on, but we
Jackhammer.
exactly.
Saws,
but all of us are so dedicated. We're still doing it, So sometimes, when you're teaching, those moments of things happening, the power going out, jackhammering happening, it's just the same as life, It's like we have to be flexible, we have to be adaptable to what's going on, and that's one thing I love as a teacher is how do we teach the concepts that we practice on the mat in real life? How can we be more flexible? How can we, be more accommodating or patient with ourselves? How can we, find our limits in our body or our limits in our body in the world? It's congruent. As above, so below, as within, so be without. Everything is connected. So when I teach yoga, I try to really teach that too. Is okay, we're flexible because we're stretching our hamstrings, but how can we be flexible when somebody's jackhammering next door? And how can we use that as an opportunity to focus inward? Because in real life, shit's going to happen that we can't stop.
Absolutely. And this is something somebody asked me the other day, but I can't meditate. And I said, so I want you to practice outside then. Do the hard way. Go to a tree in the middle of a city park and sit down, lean your back against the tree, close your eyes, and I just want you to focus on your breathing.
Yes.
Put your tongue in the roof of your mouth. Breathe in through your nose. Hold it. Breathe out through your mouth until that sound goes away and you don't hear it anymore. And you don't hear the kid screaming or the lady yelling at the kid or the cars going by. He was like, I never thought about doing it like that. I said, it's not about sitting lotus.
No.
Yeah, you don't have to. Be comfortable.
Yeah.
It's about getting out of your head.
100%.
It's about going inward and going and letting it go.
Absolutely.
And I don't think he'd ever heard that before.
No, and a lot of people, they think meditation is just okay, I need to sit up straight, do it in this certain posture, and I need to close my eyes and I need to not think. And that sounds like torture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll never get there like that.
Because that's not how it works. Meditation, from how I was taught, is really, it's about trying to have a single pointed focus. Because when you do that, like you said, focusing on the breathing, it helps to drown out all of not just the things going on outside of yourself, but also the intruding thought patterns. And they call it vritti, or the monkey mind, the swirling of thoughts.
Terrible monkey mind. I do.
Me too.
Yeah.
So it's about just trying to, allow your attention to focus on one thing. Sometimes it's the breath. Sometimes it's sound or music. That's what sound meditation is for. Sometimes it's visually gazing at a candle or a mandala on the wall, But the goal is to try to just focus on one thing so that the 1,000 or 10,000 million things aren't clogging up your mind. And the more that you do that, you're training your mind and your focus to be able to not be overrun or controlled by all the intrusive thoughts. And you're going to, throughout that process, you're going to have a thought and you're going to travel and you're going to start thinking about it, or you're going to get distracted by something and you're going to kind of lose your focus. But all it is compassionately, just like a child that you would redirect. Oh, I'm thinking, come back. I always try to explain it as imagine that you're a mountain and you're standing still and strong and grounded and your thoughts are like clouds. So the clouds, come in, you see them, and you allow them to pass by. Now, you're not trying to, use effort to push the thought away. That's what a lot of people do. It's I'm thinking. I can't be thinking. Yeah. You just created tension in your mind, right? And you can't follow it. You can't be is that a nimbus cloud? What is...
I think I see a puppy.
Yeah. There's a dragon. Exactly. You can't do that either because that's following the train of thought. So it's just seeing the thought, seeing the cloud and letting it pass through. And the breath is such an important aspect of that because our breath is our way in. Out of all of the automatic systems of our body, our breath is the one that we have intentionally can control. Yeah. We can't stop our heart from beating, thank goodness. We can't speed up our digestion by thinking about it, but we can hold our breath. We can blow out a candle. We can do different practices.
You can get high breathing.
You can.
You can get right out there.
Kapalabhati breath. Yes. They call it yogic coffee, because it's directly connected to the nervous system. So that's another huge foundational aspect of my teaching is, do you understand how your nervous system works? Do you know what fight or flight mode versus rest and digest mode is?
I have no flight.
Just fight. There's fight, flight, and freeze. Freeze is the next one, too. And that happens to me when you get super overwhelmed and you just shut down.
Yes.
People, say, this person's, depressed or lazy or they won't leave their house. It's no, they're frozen. Their nervous system has shut down.
They can't take another thing.
Exactly. And that's when it gets really hard because it's the point where, you don't care who you're disappointing or what responsibilities or obligations you're not meeting. And then the guilt and shame cycle goes on top of it and people get
Which is
stuck.
the worst.
And I have been there, you know. So understanding that your breath is a direct influence to your nervous system and that you can literally kick yourself out of stress mode into rest mode by just breathing a certain way. And by having these tools and understanding that, you're able to be actually an advocate and be empowered enough to help yourself, to get out of these moments of anxiety and crisis and stress just by doing certain practices, and I don't want people to have to, come to Reiki every month or every week. I'm here when you need me. My goal is to try to help you be able to regulate yourself.
Yeah, get well.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, I always hear people advocate for box breathing for anxiety, but I think there's probably a better way to do it. What would you suggest?
There's all different practices. Box breathing is typically inhale for 4, exhale for 4, right? So that's a solid practice. Optimal breath, you do want, the inhale and the exhale to be the same length, when we're naturally or automatic breathing. The core part of your breathing that you really want to focus on is that it's diaphragmatic. Yeah. So that means that when you inhale, the abdomen is rising and expanding. When you exhale, it's falling back towards the body. Because when we breathe, there's a muscle, the diaphragm, it's right underneath your rib cage. It almost looks like an upside down bowl. That muscle expanding is actually what vacuums the air into your lungs. And then your lungs, of course, process it and everything. And then when you exhale, that muscle kind of contracts and it pushes the air out. Now, when you have anxiety, when you are, stressed, that muscle gets weak and cramped and we start breathing with our chest muscles.
Yes.
All of us that have that tension in the shoulders and the chest and the neck feel like we can't get deep breaths. It's because our diaphragm is either weak or cramped up and we're using these other muscles to breathe and we're not getting a deep breath. And when you chest breathe, you're actually signaling to the nervous system with every breath, stress, stress. So, putting one hand on the heart, one on the belly, closing down the eyes and breathing deep, trying to intentionally breathe into the hand on the belly, slowing down the breath, doing the box breathing that way, but ensuring that it's deep and diaphragmatic. Another thing you can do is like a grounding breath where you inhale for 4 and then exhale for like 6 or 8. So it's like inhale, exhale. It's like you slow that exhale down. And when you're doing that, you're actually like teaching the body and telling the body like, okay, I'm relaxing, I'm grounding down. Because think about it, like fight or flight mode was great, right? When we were like people that had to run from bears and like lions and things, like that was great. Like I needed to run away from a danger or whatever. But the body can't tell the difference between, oh my gosh, there's a tiger about to eat me, and oh my gosh, I'm so stressed about XYZ. So the body is responding with stress hormones, a short, rapid breath, rapid heart rate, tense up muscles and all these things like it would as if you needed to fight or run away from something when you're just sitting at your home stressed out. And over time, that's what degrades our health. Cortisol is terrible. It will degrade every aspect of your being, So think about like, okay, so it's funny, like if I was in danger, say like I was running from a tiger or something like that, and I got safe. What would my body probably do then? I would start to slow down my breath. Maybe I would lay down. Maybe I would eat something, So like, it's like you have to kind of like trick your body into like doing what it would do to know. You're playing
games with yourself, people.
To know that it's safe, And that's why, a lot of behaviors, whether it's, overeating or like eating things that aren't healthy for us, things like that we're doing that because we're trying to trigger that rest and digest response.
You're soothing the trauma.
You're soothing it. So it's a matter of understanding and making sure that the things that you're doing to soothe the nervous system are actually long lasting and that they're nourishing to you. And that's where addiction comes in, is we're just trying to comfort and soothe the nervous system, but in a way that is just like a Band-Aid, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then we get caught in this cycle because it's not long lasting. And then we're also like triggering dopamine and serotonin and all these happy chemicals, but it doesn't last.
Yeah, not at all.
So that's where practice comes in, is like you develop something that is it's easy and attainable. That's important. Some people are like, I want to do yoga an hour every day and meditate an hour every day, and I'm gonna do all this stuff. And it's immediately like you fail before you start because your goal is unattainable. So small little increments of having these tools, these practices to pull out when you need them.
Moderation. You hear it all the time, and people still don't understand what it means. And I wish I'd known that. You're talking about addiction. My way of dealing with that stress and fatigue was to become addicted to speed. I was building a nuclear plant, and I was exhausted. We were working 16-hour days, and we weren't getting any days off, and it had been like a month or so we'd been at it. And this trucker was like, here, take this. Oh, God. Yeah, that's how it started, was just to stay awake.
Exactly.
Then I was like, oh God, I can't sleep, so I've got to stay awake.
Exactly. Our society does not understand addiction, and I feel like people are judged so badly for it, and it's totally something that we're trying to do to just survive or try to either, like you said, stay up and keep through our job, or to kind of just soothe ourselves in some way. And then
self-soothing, definitely.
Yeah, and then that is addictive, and then we get caught in these cycles, and it leads us, people to doing things that they never would maybe do because they're stuck in this cycle. But we have to have compassion and empathy in those situations. And I've dealt with addiction, in my life and of people around me, and it's one of the hardest cycles to break.
Yeah. Hats off to anybody.
Absolutely. It's grueling for the people around them too, because it is one thing. It's like you can't fix, you can't do anything. That person has to get to it themselves.
And you can't understand why they can't see it.
So it's a matter of we have to trying to help people have new practices and new things that work, and that are experiential, actually really feeling a difference. And I know yoga, meditation, practices in different time, community, I think are some of the biggest remedies to those things.
Best tools ever.
And having the right teacher.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
has that perspective.
Yeah.
That's really rare.
She's definitely the
Yeah.
right teacher.
So
got the
where is
perfect
the
attitude.
studio again, and what hours are you open?
Yeah.
Because I might need some of that.
Yeah. So I have
You do. I mean, you do. It's good for anxiety. It's really
Yeah.
amazing.
It is. I have classes every day except Saturday. Saturday was like my one day. I'm trying
Recharge day.
I'm recharging. But yeah, it's on Winola Road. Some people think of it as 307, but Winola Road. I'm like a half mile from the state hospital, so it's not far. If you're on like Clark Summit, you can get there from like Shady Lane.
Yeah.
So it's there. I have a sign. It's great. And I do classes in the evening, in the mornings, and then I do one-on-one, Reiki appointments by appointment. So I work with your schedule in order to set those up. And that's really great for if you need kind of like a big reset or like one-on-one kind of tailored practice or service that's for you. I do one-on-one meditation and yoga. So if you don't feel comfortable being in a group, I do sound therapy, tarot there, and probably a million other things are going to end up, being
Awesome.
offered. Yeah, and I do events there as well. So there's a little bit of everything for everybody.
Do you
That's
do two
fantastic.
humans and a dog because she has attachment issues?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of goat yoga. I don't know about Bella yoga.
Rottweiler yoga.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Love
She'll
it.
snore her way through.
Yeah, she will.
She can teach some meditation, trust me.
Yes, she can.
Look at her with her she has her paws
She's
crossed
very
right now.
ladylike.
She's like
so prissy.
I'm so dainty.
she knows we're talking about her now. Hi, pretty.
She's a priss. She's a priss. So
Well-
it's 1107, right? Winola Road?
1107.
And there's another business right next to you people might be more familiar with?
Yes, Flory Homes.
Flory Homes.
Yes,
Yeah,
Flory Homes.
excellent.
And they've been amazing. They've been so welcoming
Aw.
and everything about it. So yeah, the Flory Homes building.
Are
I'm
they customers yet?
not yet, but I know they will be soon.
Working on them, working
They
on them.
build beautiful houses. So if
Come on,
you need
guys.
a house
You need to
built,
distress. I know what house building is all about. I was in construction. Get over there.
Yeah, have a class with someone that gets it.
Yeah,
that gets
absolutely.
It doesn't judge you
Not
based
just-
on anything.
Not just
Yeah.
doing yoga to be a Karen.
No. There's no
It's a
white girl
lifestyle.
magic
Yes,
here.
we're trying to make you more of you, right?
Yeah.
Connecting
Yeah.
with yourself. And that's being the most authentic version of yourself and feeling courageous enough to do that and celebrate that is, I feel, a big motivator of mine too. Really finding your voice, your dance, your song, and what you're good at and what you're here to do, because that's alignment. People talk about manifestation all the time, and I really think manifestation is just a matter of aligning
Yeah.
with what you're here to do.
That word.
Yeah.
Actually
yeah.
putting the
Not
work
my
in.
favorite. Put the work in.
Yeah.
Putting the work in,
Not
and
wishful thinking.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not about like desiring things outside of yourself. It's desiring like a connection with yourself. And when
Yes.
you find out like, what is it that makes me tick? What is my shadow? What do I need to work on? How can I use this to serve the world? What is my
Absolutely.
passion? What is my purpose? And once you get that, and once you unapologetically and courageously start going after that, trusting, that's what that trust and surrender, we hear all these buzzwords.
Yeah.
And I used to
And
like
they
despise
suck.
them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
until you actually understand, it's like, oh, surrender to like, I can quit my job and follow this, and the universe will like lead me because
Yeah.
I can trust,
But
and
you gotta
surrender
trust.
to the process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it doesn't make sense if you're just like throwing them out there without any context. So that's why I feel like sharing my actual story and who I am, so that like things actually like are in context. That's what I really try to like share a lot of these practices. Because if you're just like preaching,
Yeah,
it's not
no.
going to click.
Not at
And then
all.
people just start searching for it, and then when they don't get it, they're like, they think that something's wrong, or they start like faking things because they're like, oh, I've reached samadhi,
Yeah.
I'm enlightened,
Have you now?
but it's just because they don't really understand it, and they don't want to be the person that doesn't understand it,
Yeah.
So how do we make this stuff understandable, tangible, applicable to everyday life, so that way we can actually integrate and transmute, more buzzwords, but integrate these things, these concepts, and then transmute the energy we've been given into something that's uplifting. And that's how
Yeah.
we're going to get out of this Kali Yuga,
Yes.
how we're going to transform this energy into something beautiful. And I'm grateful to have incarnated during this time, even though it's difficult.
Yes.
We just have to keep looking forward, because we are already on our way. She's like, yeah, we're already on our way to the new world is here. It's just, it's about continuing forward and trusting that. So not being discouraged by the heaviness in the world, just sending love where we can, doing your own personal work, knowing that matters, and then that, is helping the collective, and just trying to have love, man, peace and love.
There you go. Well said.
It.
I think people need to remember too, and that all time is now, and it's all occurring right now. So it seems bad, but the future is here. It's yours to choose. You choose your path. You can go back and be in the past and hang in that negativity, or you can be in the present and expect the future to happen.
Absolutely.
And just let it happen organically and be a decent person and have some joy.
Yeah.
I think the fear is eating everybody alive. Get out and do some breathing.
So you have a website?
I do. It's Kailin, Kailin of Earth.com. And then my social media channels are the same, Kailin of Earth. I'm always on there posting more shenanigans and stuff like that.
Yeah, we watch her all the time.
Yeah, they're great. The studio looks absolutely beautiful. We've
Thank
done an amazing
you.
job.
Yeah.
It looks like an awesome place to go.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for getting up early and come spend some time with us.
Thank you. It was a
I'm
blast.
so grateful to
Yeah.
be here anytime.
And thank you guys for listening. If you've made it this far, just check out Kailin of Earth.
Love you guys. Breathe.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of In the Weeds, and we hope you didn't have to pick too much pucker brush off your cloak after visiting with us here. If you liked the episode, please follow, subscribe, and share. And if you're really kind, leave a positive review. Be sure to tune in next week as we publish a new episode weekly. If you're in the area, stop by the store and see us. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.